Hello, Mark, and everybody.
Yes, wonderful. So let me just welcome everybody to this celebration, this musical celebration of Naw-Rúz called "This Is the Day." And before I introduce Luke Slot, I just wanted to give you all a little bit of a background on how this event came to be. This event was originally going to be a in-person celebration here in Palo Alto, California. We had rented the local art center, we had invited our friends, refreshments were being thought of, and as you all are probably experiencing, this global pandemic drastically altered our plans, and with good reason, as we have to protect ourselves and our communities with this, as they call it, physical distancing. So we made the event virtual. The Assembly of Palo Alto made that decision in consultation with Luke, and then and we were going to host it here in our home, but then with increased concern and awareness, realized we had to keep it maximally virtual. So Luke is coming to you from one space. I'm hosting you from another space in my home with this shelter-in-place directive. And so we are super virtual. And then in further consultation with the Assembly and Luke, we realized that we could open this up to the whole world. And as you saw, if you were joining earlier, we have people truly from around the globe, time zone permitting, listening to this concert. So what we're going to do is Luke is going to share his music and story with you, and then at the end we will have some time if people have comments or questions, because we wanted to some way preserve a bit of this interactive feeling, because if we had been together in a room, you would have been able to come up to Luke and thank him directly for his gift and maybe ask him a question. And so this is part of our effort to try and preserve that in-person experience. And I'll be monitoring the different forums for you to ask your questions. So now let me introduce Luke. Luke is a singer and composer from Ireland. He was born into a musical family in Dublin and began playing music at an early age. He learned guitar and trumpet from his father, and he studied piano at the Royal Irish Academy of Music. While still in high school, he was signed to Sony Music, but later set out on his own as an independent recording artist. And he's been touring extensively. He's given concerts and music workshops in over 20 countries. And at the age of 21, Luke discovered the Baha'i faith and began incorporating the Baha'i teachings into his music. And in 2021, the Baha'i community around the world will commemorate a very historic occasion, the 100th anniversary of the passing of Abdul-Baha, the son of Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of the Baha'i faith. And so between his tours, Luke is currently working on a new album in honor of that occasion. So without any further ado, I present to you Luke Slot.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Happy Naw-Rúz to you all. And what an amazing thing that we can all be together. I can see there are people coming in from all over the world to join us. So this is just, you know, the fact that that technology has reached such a point where we can actually all be together, even in a situation like this where we can't be together in person. I think this is a kind of a sort of a modern miracle of the modern world. So thank God we have these tools, and thank you all for being here. It's so wonderful that we're able to do this and to celebrate together in this way. So when the Baha'i community of Palo Alto asked me to prepare a program for Naw-Rúz, this really gave me an opportunity to think about Naw-Rúz in ways that I'd never really thought about it before. And you know, over the past couple of weeks, as I've been thinking about Naw-Rúz and preparing this program, I have to say I've fallen in love with the whole idea of Naw-Rúz. And this process of preparing this program has really taught me a greater appreciation of the meaning and significance of Naw-Rúz. And so I really want to express my thanks to the Baha'i community of Palo Alto for inviting me to share some music and to celebrate together and share this program with you. So for those of you who are perhaps not familiar with Naw-Rúz, because I always remember there was a time when I was not familiar with Naw-Rúz. Naw-Rúz literally means new day. And every year there are a number of different cultures and different communities around the world who celebrate Naw-Rúz as a festival on or around March 20th. And one of those communities is the Baha'i community, who actually celebrate Naw-Rúz as the beginning of the new year on the Baha'i calendar. And Naw-Rúz also comes right at the end of the annual period of fasting that Baha'is do, when we fast from sunrise to sunset for 19 days, really as a period of spiritual restoration and preparation for the new year. So Naw-Rúz is really this major annual celebration that not only marks the end of the fast, but also marks the beginning of the new year. So over the next hour, I'm going to share with you a selection of songs, the words of which all primarily come from the sacred writings of the Baha'i faith. And so I really hope that in hearing these words, that this will be something of a rejuvenating sacred experience for you, wherever you are in the world. But in between the songs, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you some thoughts and stories, and I'm really just going to share with you what I've been learning about Naw-Rúz in the process of preparing this program. And my hope for this program is that after an hour, you will come away with a renewed sense, or perhaps even a new sense, of joy and appreciation of Naw-Rúz as a festival. But more than that, I hope that this next hour will give you a new sense of appreciation about the bigger picture of this new day and age in which we live, an age which on the one hand has this enormous capacity for world-encompassing problems, as we are all experiencing right now together, but at the same time it is an age that has this equally enormous capacity for world-embracing progress. And I really hope that you can keep this idea of progress and moving forward really at the forefront of your mind as we work our way through tonight's program. So before I begin the program itself, I wanted to actually start by singing a prayer, the words of which were written by a man called the Bab, which means the gate. The Bab was the forerunner of Baha'u'llah, the founder of the Baha'i faith, and he gave this prayer to his followers to give them inner strength at times when they were facing great difficulties. And so I would like to actually dedicate this prayer to all those people who are working in the medical field and in the healthcare field and in all the fields that are related to those fields, all those people who are working so extraordinarily hard to tend to people's needs and people's health. This is for all of you doctors and carers who are making such monumental efforts to look after humanity's health. This is called Remover of Difficulties. Is there any remover of difficulties? Save God, say praised be God. He is God, all are his servants. and all abide by his bidding. Is there any remover of difficulties, save God? Say, praise be God. He is God. All are his servants, and all abide by his bidding. Say, God sufficeth all things, above all things. Say, God sufficeth all things, above all things, and nothing in the heavens, nothing in the heavens or in the earth, but God sufficeth. And nothing in the heavens, nothing in the heavens or in the earth, but God suffices. Is there any remover of difficulties, save God? Is there any remover of difficulties, save God? Is there any remover of difficulties, save God? So to begin this series of musings on Naw-Rúz, I wanted to begin by sharing with you a little recollection from my childhood. So for my entire childhood growing up in Ireland, I personally was never aware of Naw-Rúz. I had never heard of it. I had no consciousness of this this ancient festival that has been going on in various parts of the world, celebrated by millions and millions of people every year for thousands and thousands of years. But later, I actually realized that there had been, in my childhood, there had been this very subtle, unspoken connection to Naw-Rúz that had been almost kind of secretly embedded in the culture and religion that surrounded me as I was growing up in Ireland. And actually many of you may share this very same connection. So in my childhood in Ireland, naturally the main festival that my family and my friends and I celebrated every year was Christmas. And every Christmas, my friends and I would put on this musical carol service in the local church. And we would sing all these Christmas carols for the local community. And one of these Christmas carols that we used to sing told the story of these three wise men who show up kind of mysteriously in the middle of the Christmas story to come and pay homage to the birth of Jesus. And maybe some of you will know this song. It's called We Three Kings. And this was always my favorite song that we would do in the carol service. And we would actually act out the Christmas service in the church. And because I loved this song so much, I always wanted to play the role of one of these three wise men who had come from this faraway land. And every year I would put together a costume. My mother would help me. We would put together all these kind of robes and a headdress and all these jewels, and we had the gold and the frankincense and the myrrh, and I would try to make myself as exotic and far away from Ireland as I possibly could. And I would come in singing the song, "We Three Kings of Orient Are," with all the gifts. Now, what I didn't realize at that time was that those three wise men who appear kind of out of the blue in the Christmas story were actually practitioners of one of the oldest spiritual traditions in the world, a religion that was founded by an ancient Persian prophet called Zoroaster, who lived about 3,500 years ago and is actually attributed with having been the founder of the festival of Naw-Rúz. And Zoroaster had this very beautiful, very profound, yet simple message. He taught that there is a great battle that takes place in the heart of every human being, and that is a battle between light and darkness. And he taught that the path to the darkness was to be found in hatred and lying and cruelty and ignorance, and that the path to the light was to be found in three things: in good thoughts, in good words, and in good actions. And these three things are really the foundation of this world religion founded by Zoroaster. Now, little did I know that every year throughout my childhood, as I stood singing these Christmas carols in homage to Jesus, little did I know that I was also paying my respects to another great spiritual figure of the past, as I stood dressed in the costume of an ancient Zoroastrian priest. But the reason I tell this story, what's important about these three wise men, is the fact that they recognized that their own religion did not exist in a vacuum from which the other spiritual traditions of the world were excluded. By actually far from viewing other religions as being in competition with their own, they actually took quite a different path. By following this path of good thoughts and good words and good actions, they were actually enabled to recognize that the same light that had shone in Zoroaster also shone in Jesus. And in the Baha'i teachings, there is a saying which I'd like to share with you. It goes, "Man must be a lover of the light, no matter from what day spring it may appear. He must be a lover of the rose, no matter in what soil it may be growing. He must be a seeker of the truth, no matter from what source it come." And so I've just received a message that the audio is weak. So I'm going to, before I sing the next song, I'm going to just adjust the audio. Just one moment.
Yeah, hi Luke, it's Mark. Just see if the turn on original sound option is available to you there in the upper left. Great. Thank
Is
you.
that any different, Mark?
Yeah, it will be when you sing. Thank you.
Okay. So this next piece is actually based on a prayer that was written by Baha'u'llah, and which I always feel expresses a very the universal message that is that light at the heart, shining in every world religion. Because what Zoroaster taught has been taught by all of the great prophets to think well of each other, to speak well towards each other, to act well towards each other. This has been taught by all of the great religions of the world, and I think that can be summarized simply as the notion of purifying our heart. So this comes from a prayer by Baha'u'llah, and this is called "Create in Me a Pure Heart." Mark, before I begin, can you just tell me, can you hear the guitar?
Definitely. Sounds good.
Create in me a pure heart, oh my God, oh my God, and renew a tranquil conscience within me, oh my hope, through the Spirit of power, confirm thou me in thy cause. Oh, my best beloved, confirm thou me in thy cause, and by the light of thy glory, reveal unto me thy path. By the light of thy glory, reveal unto me thy path. O thou, the goal of my desire, and through the power of thy transcendent might, lift me up unto the heaven of thy holiness, O source of my being, and by the breezes of thine eternity, gladden me, O thou who art my God. Let thine everlasting melody breathe tranquility on me, O my companion. Let the riches of thine ancient inexhaustible essence, bring me joy. Oh, thou who art the most manifest of the manifest, and the most hidden of the hidden, the most manifest of the manifest, and the most hidden of the hidden, of the hidden, of the hidden, of the hidden, of the hidden. So something that I've really come to appreciate about Naw-Rúz, of just thinking about it over the past couple of weeks and preparing for tonight, is the fact that Naw-Rúz is a very universal festival, because even though Naw-Rúz is associated with certain cultures, most notably with Persian culture, because of course Zoroaster himself was Persian, Naw-Rúz is really, it's a festival that in many ways stands above and beyond any particular culture, because Naw-Rúz is of course the celebration of the spring equinox in the northern hemisphere. It's a celebration of really of the natural cycles of our planet. And so it's a very natural, universal celebration. And the reason this is important is because Naw-Rúz is really, it is a festival that draws our attention to that which we have in common. It draws our attention to those things, those fundamental things that we share. And of course, the primary example of that is our planet. And in fact, Baha'u'llah said that this span of earth is but one homeland and one habitation. It behoveth you to abandon vainglory which causeth alienation, and to set your hearts on whatever will ensure harmony. And you know, it has often been remarked that the reason that the great religions of the world have experienced so much disharmony throughout history is not because they have so much at odds with each other, but actually because they have so much in common with each other. And this is nowhere more apparent than in one particular strand that runs like a common thread throughout the teachings of all of the great religions of the world. And that is the thread of a common promise that is shared by all of the religions of the world. Because if we survey the world's great heritage of religious scriptures, if we look at the Jewish scriptures or the Christian scriptures, or if we look at the Quran, or if we look at the Hindu Vedas or the Buddhist sutras or the ancient teachings of Zoroaster, or even if we look at the many indigenous traditions of the world, we find that they each and all carry this common promise of a future, of a day that will come in which some great transformation of the world will take place. And this event, this transformation, has of course been described in different ways, in different traditions. It has been referred to as the day of God, the day of gathering, the day in which the people of the world will beat their swords into plowshares and they shall study war no more. Or in my experience growing up in Ireland, it was described as that day when God's will shall be done on earth as it is in heaven. But whatever way we describe this, it is this common promise that runs through all of the great spiritual traditions of the world. And the founders of those religions have taught their followers that great day, that transformation, will come about through the appearance of some great figure, an inspired, promised one who will usher in that great age of universal peace promised by the prophets of the past. And in the 19th century, Baha'u'llah, who was a Persian nobleman from the same ancient land of Zoroaster, and whose name actually translates as the light of God, made a historic and staggering announcement to all of the major political rulers and religious leaders of the world. He announced to them that that age of transformation was now beginning, and that he himself was that promised one, foretold by the prophets of the past, and who had been commissioned to usher in all of humanity into that age of universal peace. And so I've actually composed a new song, especially for tonight, which is based on some words of Baha'u'llah speaking about this new day and age in which we live. And this song really just came about as I was preparing this program, and I'm delighted to share it with you. This is called "This Is the Day." This is the day, this is the day, where on the ocean of God's mercy hath been manifested unto men. This is the day, this is the day in which the day star of his loving kindness hath shed its radiance upon them. This is the day, this is the day in which the clouds of his bountiful favor have overshadowed the whole of mankind. Now is the time to cheer and refresh the downcast through the invigorating breeze of love and fellowship, and the living waters of friendliness and charity. This is the day in which mankind can behold the face and hear the voice of the promised one. So one way to think about Naw-Rúz, about this festival, is to think about it as a celebration of light, because of course the spring equinox is that moment in the year when the the light of the sun is shed equally throughout the whole earth. It's shed equally in the northern and southern hemispheres. And this is very significant in the Baha'i teachings because Baha'u'llah often uses this image of light as an analogy for love and unity between human beings. He said, so powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. And this is a very profound choice of analogy, because when we think about it, you know, if we're walking down a dark path, the only thing the only way that we can see the way forward is by light. And I think what's happening, what seems to be happening in this pandemic, is that people are starting to realize that we don't know where to go. We don't know how to move forward through this. And the only way that we're going to see and discover the way forward is by working together as a united planet. And so it's almost as if unity is that light that actually enables us to see those things that we just can't see when we're in a state of conflict. And while all of these incredible physicians and carers are working so hard to find a remedy to this virus, I think there's another process that is taking place in the world, that people are starting to realize that there is another great illness in the world for which humanity desperately needs a cure. And that is perhaps the even greater virus of prejudice and hatred and disunity. And just as Zoroaster 3,500 years ago, acting like a kind of a sort of spiritual physician, put his finger on the pulse of the world and prescribed his remedy of good thoughts and good words and good actions. And Jesus, also like a divine physician, put his finger on the pulse of the world and prescribed a remedy of love and forgiveness. And also Moses and Muhammad and Buddha and Krishna and all of these great divine spiritual physicians of history have likewise diagnosed the problems of the world and have given to the world the perfect remedy for the ills of their day. Baha'u'llah has placed his finger on the pulse of modern man and has prescribed a new remedy for this new day of new problems that we are facing. And I wanted to share with you a passage which summarizes this remedy. This comes from a book called The Revelation of Baha'u'llah, by Adib Taherzadeh. It says, "The teachings of God in this day, revealed by Baha'u'llah, revolve around unity, and it is to this goal that a disconsolate humanity is striving. But with all his resources and capabilities, man is helpless to establish a lasting peace among the warring nations and peoples of the world. This in spite of the fact that humanity has advanced enormously in many fields of knowledge and has within its ranks brilliant men and women who have produced great achievements in almost every aspect of life on this planet. But one thing they have proved themselves to be incapable of, namely, to unite the hearts of men who are each other's enemy and make them love one another." Baha'u'llah says, "The all-knowing physician hath his finger on the pulse of mankind. He perceiveth the disease and prescribeth in his unerring wisdom the remedy. That which the Lord hath ordained as the sovereign remedy and mightiest instrument for the healing of all the world is the union of all its peoples in one universal cause, one common faith." So I'd like to now sing a prayer that Baha'u'llah wrote for the unity of the world. And some friends of mine have actually taught me how to pronounce the words of this prayer in the original Persian and Arabic that Baha'u'llah wrote in. And so I'll first sing this prayer in the original Persian words and Arabic words, and then I'll sing it in the English translation. So this is called "The Light of Unity." Inshallah, آفاق به نور اتفاق منور شود و در جبین جمیع من علی الارض نقش خاتم الملك لله منطبق گردد. God grant that the light of unity may envelop the whole earth, and that the sea of the kingdom is gone. we stand upon the brow of all its people. 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 So as I mentioned at the beginning, really my hope for this program is to really to share with you this new appreciation that I've personally discovered in thinking about Naw-Rúz over the past few weeks. And, you know, I think that Naw-Rúz has this significance, not just this microcosmic significance in terms of, you know, the beginning of a new year, the beginning of springtime, the beginning of a new cycle in our planet, but it also has this great macrocosmic significance, really as a symbol of this new day, this new era in which we all live. And I really feel that this ancient festival, founded 3,500 years ago by Zoroaster and now reaffirmed in modern times by Baha'u'llah, really has great symbolic significance, because being the spring equinox, what we are actually celebrating at Naw-Rúz is that moment in the year when the length of the day just begins to surpass the length of the night. It is that moment when the darkness begins to recede and the light begins to increase. And so I wanted to wrap up this, this program by sharing with you a scene from a TV show that I watched several years ago and which really struck me. There is this scene in this show where, maybe some of you will recognize this, where the two main characters are having this very profound conversation. They've been through a lot together, and they're looking up at the nighttime sky. And one of them is, he's looking up at the sky and he's looking at all these different stars twinkling in the sky. And he starts to comment on this scene. He says, you know, we have all these different stories. Different people have different stories, different cultures, different traditions, so many different stories. But he says, ultimately, it's all one story. It's the story of light and darkness. And the other character looks up at the nighttime sky, and he replies kind of cynically to his friend. He looks up and he says, well, you know, I'm sorry to tell you this, but it seems like the darkness has most of the territory up there. And his friend says to him, no, you're looking at it wrong. Once there was only darkness. If you ask me, the light's winning. And so on that note, I'd like to sing for you one last song, which is a tribute to all of those great divine physicians who have risen like the sun at Naw-Rúz to turn the winter of the world into springtime, and who have each also carried forward this ancient promise of a new day that will come, a day in which human beings will finally learn to see each other as one united family, and the light will win. So this is called Have You Heard? Have you heard of the troubles of Moses? So much light on the earth he did shed. Well, all the people, they rose up against him, and they rained down their darts on his head. And he came with a message of peace, love, and justice, and the promise of a great one to come. When the wolf and the lamb will dwell together, and the whole human race will be one. Now, have you heard of the sufferings of Jesus? How pure and selfless he was. Well, all the people, they rose up against him and put God's only Son on a cross. And he came with a message of peace, love, and justice, and the promise of a great one to come. When on earth it will be as in heaven, and the whole human race will be one. Now, have you heard of the pains of Zoroaster, when he stood between darkness and fire? Well, all the people, they rose up against him, and they burned his noble name on a funeral pyre. And he came with a message of peace, love, and justice, and the promise of a great one to come. When the light will illumine the darkness, and the whole human race will be one. Now, have you heard of the woes of Muhammad? All the bruises and abuses he bore. Well, all the people, they rose up against him, and they closed in his face every door. And he came with a message of peace, love, and justice, and the promise of a great one to come, when all the people will be gathered together, and the whole human race will be one. Now I don't ask you to believe me when I tell you Baha'u'llah has come. I just ask you, my brother, to see me, and the whole human race as one. No, I don't ask you to believe me when I tell you Baha'u'llah has come. I just ask you, my sister, to see me, and the whole human race as one. One. So thank you all very much, and happy Naw-Rúz.
Thank you so much, Luke. Beautiful, beautiful offering, so appropriate for this time.